Hello, good morning or good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Today it is a snowy, cold, rainy day at my house. It's Monday. I'm going to talk through identifying variables with you today so that if you are unable to attend the lecture today, you can go ahead and watch this video and learn a little bit about how to identify variables. So we talked last week about creating a testable question. That was what we were learning. And now the next part of it, after we kind of think about our question, we're going to review what variables are. We talked about this last week too, and how to identify them in an experiment. So remember that there are three types of variables in an experiment. There's the independent variable, and there's one of those. There's the dependent variable, and there's one of those. And then there are the controlled variables, which there are lots and lots and lots of controlled variables in an experiment. So if you remember, the independent variable is the thing that you are changing. So you're just changing one thing. What is it that you're going to change is the independent variable. The dependent variable is what you are going to measure or what you're going to collect data about. Again, there's only one thing you're measuring. And then the controlled variables are all of the things that then you need to keep the same. So all of the other parts of the experiment that need to be kept the same. And we're going to go through some examples. So the independent variable in an experiment is the one variable that you are changing. So if we look at this experiment here, what is being changed? The answer would be the number or the drops of fertilizer. Okay, that would be what's being changed in this experiment. The next one then would be the dependent variable, is the one variable you are going to measure. So what is it that we're going to measure in this experiment? There's a number of things that we could measure. Okay, we could measure the height of the plant, we could measure the number of leaves, we could measure the length of the roots. There's all kinds of things that we could measure in this experiment. We could measure the color of green even. We can put a numerical value to that, and we can measure the color. The next one is the controlled variables. In an experiment, all the things that you keep the same are the controls. So if you look here, we're keeping the amount of light the same. We're keeping the amount of water the same. We're keeping the pot the same. We probably have the same amount of soil in the pot. We have the same type of soil. We're going to water with the same type of water. So we have to think about all the things that we need to keep the same so that the only difference between them is how much fertilizer they're getting. So it's down to the humidity in the room, the temperature in the room, all of those things need to be kept the same. The only thing that's different is the amount of fertilizer, which is the independent variable. And then what we're going to measure is the height of the plant, let's say in this case. And then all of the other things we talked about would need to be kept the same. So the question here, the scientific question, let's say, is how does the amount of fertilizer affect plant height? You can often identify the independent and dependent variables from the question alone. So if we look at this question, the amount of fertilizer, yep, that's what we're changing. That's the independent variable. And the plant height is what we're going to measure. That's the dependent variable. So we're going to watch this video, and I'm going to ask that you, if you are watching this, if you're going through this on your own, that you stop now, watch the video, and during the video follow along and correctly identify the independent and the dependent variables in each experiment. So there are 4 different experiments where they are looking at the different examples from Mythbusters, and you're supposed to identify the independent and the dependent variables. So if you are watching this instead of in class, I'm going to ask you to stop this video here, click on the link, go to watch those videos, and the link, if you can't click on it in the screencastify, which is true, I'll have this posted above this, and you can go to the slideshow, click on the link, it's on slide 9, and then come back and finish the screencastify. So in the video, we did not cover all the controlled variables. So in the last video, the video asked the question, is it worth running in the rain? So some of the things that they kept the same were the distance that they ran and walked. They wore the same brand and type of suit. They they were in the same amount of rain, they were in the same temperature, they were doing all those things the same. So those would be the things that were the controlled variables that it didn't discuss. So one of the things that students really have struggled with in the past is identifying the controlled variables. So the things that are kept the same in the experiment. So if we look at this experiment in the picture, it says, does red light affect plant growth? So what we're changing is the light color, and what we're measuring again here is the plant height. So think about for yourself, before we talk about it, what are some of the things that are being kept the same then in this experiment? Try to come up with 4. So some of the ones that they said were water, soil, temperature, and the day or nighttime. But if you look at this, you could even be more specific and talk about the amount of water, the type of soil, the amount of soil, the temperature in the room, and the time of day that you would take your data. So all of those would be the controlled variables, or the things that are kept the same in the experiment. So we're going to practice one more time. So as we go through, I want you to think about what the answer would be. So in this experiment, what would be the independent variable? If you said that what they're watering the plants with, that would be correct because they're changing whether it's soda or pop or cola, whatever you call it, or juice or water. So the thing that they're changing is what they're watering with. Then what would be the dependent variable? What are they going to measure in this experiment? If you said the height of the plant, you are correct. Based on the ruler here, it looks like they're going to measure the height of the plant. Then what would be some things we would need to keep the same? So looking at this experiment, what are some of the things that are the same in all 3 examples? So it would be the same type of plant, the same type of pot, the same color of the pot, probably the same type of soil inside the pot, the same amount of soil, the same amount of cola, juice, or water is being put in. Even though they're changing that, they would still need to put the same amount. And you can probably come up with even more ideas of how you could do that. Okay. So the next step, what we're going to learn about next week on Thursday, because tomorrow, remember that we have math testing, develop a hypothesis. So the next step is developing a hypothesis, and a hypothesis is an educated guess. So we're going to predict the results of this experiment based on what we already know. So what you're going to do today is, it's your turn now. You're going to go to step 3 into the Google form and identify the independent and the dependent variables from the questions that are given. If that is the end of this presentation for today, so now go to the Google form in step 3 and answer those questions.